Hi, my name is Ken Masson. I am the president, or co-president, I should say, of the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy. We are a Rotary club that was formed about 5 years ago. We're in our fifth year at this point, and our focus is on the human rights for people with disabilities on a global level. We're in more than 30 countries at this point and have about 80 members. And we're working on a number of projects. And we have with us one of our club members. And it's appreciation to be here with you, Chad. Chad Harper is a club member, and he's introduced the club to the idea of using music as an advocacy tool. And we'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, why don't you tell us about who you are, Chad?
Thank you, Ken. It's an honor to be here. I thank you for this opportunity to share. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, even though my artist name is Brooklyn Globetrotter. But having said that, I moved to New York City in the late 90s. And I was really fascinated by all the different languages and cultures and people that I met from all over the world in New York City. And that's where I founded my organization, Hip Hop Saves Lives, where I use hip hop to educate kids about social issues. And I started that working with children in 2012. Crafting songs, educating kids about everyday heroes that everyday heroes that work to solve, different humanitarian problems. And we use songwriting as a way for the kids to express what they've learned. So that's the heart and soul of who I am as an adult. I use music. I'm a songwriter and music producer, educator, hip hop artist, and mentor to a lot of young artists, to use music as a way to speak out, be heard, shine light, and celebrate, all the goodness in the world.
So what happened in 2012 that made you start on this journey?
So I wrote the first song in 2006 for an organization in New York City called Charity Water that did elaborate cocktail parties to raise funds for water wells in Africa. That was the first song that I wrote to celebrate an organization. And it just really touched all of their followers and supporters. And it just meant so much to people who were coming to make donations. And I remember my mom telling me, make sure you print out the lyrics because people who donate to charities don't listen to hip hop. So, print out the lyrics. So when people buy the CD, of course, this is back when we had CDs, give them the lyrics. And I remember giving one lady the lyric sheet, and she actually started to cry after reading the lyrics. And I was like, wow, this is really what I want to do with music. So over the next couple of years, I had written a couple songs. And then in 2011, I decided to record a song a day, Monday through Friday, about a different humanitarian. And I would invite as many friends from musician friends, rappers, singers, poets, music producers from around New York City to come to the studio and participate in making this song. So Monday through Friday, we would do a song a day about a different humanitarian. And a friend of mine was a school teacher and said, hey, can I bring some kids, because he had an after school program that was about hip hop. And he said, can I bring some of my best talented kids to the studio? And I said, sure, you can go on a Saturday when the kids are out of school, but I have to work on the weekend. I'll have another friend come and be there. Long story short, the principal heard these songs that 3 kids had written and recorded at that studio. And he calls me and he says, this is an after school program. Would you like to create a curriculum and I can figure out a budget and pay you for this work? So that is what happened. January 5th, 2012, I started the after school program, Hip Hop Saves Lives, teaching kids how to write songs to celebrate humanitarians.
It's always great to hear how people get themselves into a whole new direction. And you certainly did. And God bless you for doing that. So you had just recently had something really cool happen to you.
Yes,
And we wanted to talk about that because you had the opportunity to go to the Grammys.
I did. I did.
And wow, it's like wow. If you're in the music business or anything, if you have any joy for music, to go to the Grammys, it's got to be one of the coolest things. So, tell me, how did that happen?
So my engineer, I lived in Kenya in 2017, and I met a guy named Kunta Official Beats, and he became an engineer, music producer. So I had this life as a digital nomad from um, 2017 till recently, basically. And Kunta, he had been building a name for himself in Nairobi, Kenya. So he had met a guy named Muzi who was part of a group called Jabali Africa. And Muzi reached out to Kunta and said, "Hey, I see that you're doing these songs with kids all over the world with this organization, Hip Hop Saves Lives." He said, this is Grammy type stuff, And Muzi had been doing children's music for a while as well. So he was like, "I really love that you're going to different countries around the world and creating songs about humanitarians with kids. Let's do something together." So we got on the phone, and I said, "Muzi, I just finished a song with two guys with polio in Sierra Leone. And it's a really personal story for me because I'm a person of disability myself. And if you want to work together, could you hop on this song and add some vocals to the song?" And Muzi at that time already had one Grammy nomination. So to work with a Grammy nominated artist on this song that was really special to me just really meant a lot. And Muzi went in the studio and laid some vocals and sent them to me, and I chopped them up and placed them on the song, and it just sounded incredible. And he said, "Submit this song to the Grammys. There's a new category out, Best Social Change Song. Anyone can submit for Best Social Change Song." So I submitted that song in 2023. We did not win the Grammy, but it just gave me such, I guess, fuel in my tank and inspiration to really push and see how far this song could go. And we just got incredible responses. One thing I did was I went to the Paralympics in 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 Paris, the Summer Paralympics, just to immerse myself in the disability world and try to promote the song there. And I think that experience really changed me of really fully accepting myself as a person with disability. I met a lot of athletes that actually could walk like me, but can't fully run, which is, my personal physical disability. And then I also have ADHD, which is something I've been dealing with my whole life, which um, I feel probably affects my life more than my limited left leg. Um, but this great experience of just pushing this song as far as we can go, I ended up getting a phone call or an email from a lady, Claire from APAP. I forget. I know. I forget what APAP stands for, but it's the world's largest um, music conference. It's in New York City every year in January, and it's for the performing arts. And they launched a new podcast a couple of years ago, and they were looking for stories. And she had heard my story through a friend's email and asked me if would I be on this podcast. And it's an award-winning podcast, and that was a huge honor. And I reached out to different Paralympic committees in Africa and talked to their presidents and said, "Hey, I was at the Summer Paralympics in Paris, and there's very small African participation. Why is that? What can we do to bring more Africa? Because I know persons with disabilities in Africa suffer on a level that I think people have no idea." And that's why I did this song with these guys in Sierra Leone. They're just kind of left to beg on the street their life. And that's what they're expected to do. No one expects anything more of them, of just to beg on the street. So yeah, I actually just lost my train of thought there. Speaking of my ADHD, but oh yes. So speaking to the Paralympic committees, and so when I went to Kenya this past November just to visit Kunta for a week, because Kunta had the number one song in the country with this famous rapper that he had produced the song. And again, Kunta is my production partner and sound engineer. And I just went to hang out with him for a week. So I contacted Muzi, and he said, "Hey, because we had never met in person." He said, "Hey, it's great that you're in Kenya. We can finally meet in person." He said, I have something for you." And I I couldn't think of like what he could have for me. And when I met with him, he says, "I have a ticket to the Grammys for you." And I was like, "What are you?" I was just like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I've been nominated again. I was part of another compilation album with a bunch of artists, and we were nominated for a Grammy. And you get a certain amount of tickets, and you have to sell these tickets. So the Grammy's a business; they want to make money." But he was like, "I loved the amount of networking you did with that disability song." He said, "You just took that song farther than I ever imagined, and I really respect your music and your the way you network." And he's like, he was like, "You deserve to be at the Grammys." So he's like, I have your name on a ticket. And I honestly couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Oh, you're muted again. Yeah. Yeah.
I apologize for that. There's all sorts of noise around me, so I'm trying to not distract you. Mm-hmm. So it's super, super cool, beyond cool. And so I can. So I imagine what we see on TV is just a small segment of actually the Grammys. Is that true?
Yes, and I didn't know how small until I experienced it. The Grammys is about a 7-hour show. I think 3.5 is shown on TV. And in the 3.5 they show on TV, they give out about 10 Grammys. The other 3.5 hours is just all Grammy give out and speeches. They give out about, I think they announced it was 89 Grammys that are not shown on TV. Wow. And then 10 for TV. Because the TV part, you have the host who's making jokes with all the celebrities to let people know what celebrities are in the house. Then you have the celebrity performances. I think this year, every best new artist got a chance to perform like 2 minutes of their top single. So it's more of a show. Like the Grammy Awards, the 3.5 hours is not shown on TV. The Grammy show is what they show on TV. And it's a little unfortunate that the top celebrities don't come to the Grammy Awards. They only go to the Grammy show for TV. Like, for example, I love Lady Gaga, as you said you do as well. But she was nominated for a category where she won during the Grammy Awards, but she didn't show up to pick it up because all the A-list celebrities, they only come out for the show. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess, you're that famous and your time is money, or you have so many other things to do. But there are a lot. So I would say 50% of those 89 Grammys they gave out, the person who won was not in attendance, and the host would say, "I'm going to accept this on behalf of them." And then the other half, they were in attendance. Like one guy from actually Cleveland, Ohio, won best, I think, contemporary R&B album. He had a phenomenal speech. There was a guy who won best gospel album. His speech was very touching. He said that, he was into street life and he was in jail, and he was just sitting in jail with a Bible and a dream of music. And now here he is at the Grammys winning a Grammy for like best, I don't know, like there's a lot of different categories, like Christian album, contemporary Christian album. There's so many different categories within one genre of music. Classical music is also given out during the Grammy Awards. Children's music, which is what I was there for with a bunch of a group of people that do children's music. So that's why I was there. Muzi does children's music, and it was just an amazing experience to be around all these musicians A lot of the jazz awards, classical music awards are given out in the Grammy Awards, but not on the show that you see on TV. So I'm sitting in this room with me. I don't know. I'm just going to guess 5,000 amazing working musicians from all over the country. And then the Grammy show on TV, we had to move to the Staples Center. I was way up on the third deck. There had to be, I don't know, 15, 20,000 people, whatever the Staples Center holds, that the place was packed out. So for the grand show, everybody shows up, and the floor where, the Lakers play basketball, that's where celebrities sit at tables. So it's totally different. I feel like they should call it the Grammy show and let people know that the Grammy Awards is actually a separate thing, but that was just my thought.
So in addition to award ceremonies, there were parties going on, there were side events going on. Did you get a chance to attend any of those?
So I attended 2 pre-events. They were actually on the same night. There was a children's music house party in Santa Monica that was just absolutely fantastic. All the children's music musicians and songwriters and producers were at this couple's house, and they have a beautiful home, and they catered food. They only asked to bring a beverage to put on the table. They were doing karaoke all night, and it was a great networking opportunity. I met so many, I met musicians actually from Cleveland, Ohio that do children's music, New York City, that I've made connections with, and then we're in chats now to do something together, collaborative. So that was really amazing. And then later on that night, I actually went to 3 events. Later on that night, there was something called Grammy U, which I think is only a couple of years old, if I'm correct. Grammy U is for 18 to 29-year-olds that want to be part of the Recording Academy, want a career in music. It's like a mentorship. So there's this massive event for Grammy U for all the young people to come out. There was a stage for them to perform on. A massive step and repeat the size of as long as a half a building to take photos. And so that was the first official event that was produced by the Grammys that I attended. That was after the house party that night. And then the next morning, we had the Grammys Children's Music Brunch at the world famous Biltmore Hotel, which is where the Oscars, I think, originated out of. That's what they told us, that this used to house the Oscars. So we had a Grammy brunch there for all children's musicians to also network again. I met a young lady named Lachi, Lachi, who is, I guess she does children's music, but also music with persons with disabilities as well. She had released a book that week that said, "I identify as blind." And she was one of the most inspirational people that I met during the whole Grammy week. She's actually doing an album right now that she's getting persons with disabilities and Grammy children's music artists to all collaborate on. So she told me if I can get my membership approved in the next this year, to be a voting member of the Recording Academy, she can include me on the album. So wow. Fingers crossed. I just have to fill out some last little bit of paperwork to become a voting member of the Recording Academy, wow. Which would be awesome. I get to vote, help vote on Grammy Awards coming next year. So yeah.
Wow. That's a whole nother subject we can get into maybe another time. But okay, so you then attended several award ceremonies. Each one, I imagine you were have different seating locations. At the actual ones that's on TV, you were like way back. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So the Staples Center has three, like I guess the ground floor, second and third level. I was on the third level for the big TV one.
Okay.
Right, because that's assigned seating based on I guess, who you know
Yeah.
and if you got nominated.
Yeah.
But the actual Grammy Awards is just first come, first serve. So
Ah,
I was able
okay.
to sit in the fifth row because my friend
Wow.
Muzi, who invited me, he was like, "We have to show up early because we want a good
Wow.
seat."
Wow.
He was there super early. So I
Yeah.
actually jumped in line with him and
Yeah.
was able to get fifth row seats,
Wow.
which
That
was
was very
just,
cool.
yeah,
Wow.
amazing.
And then you got on TV or whatever it was. We saw your picture from when the
Right.
Children's Award.
Right. So I'm sitting with him and a bunch of other people that came early to, and, we were there for Best Children's Album. And the guy that won, I had met him 2 days before at the house party in Santa Monica. And the Grammy Children's Music Group, it's just like one giant collective family. Whoever wins, everyone is equally happy for. So as when he won, him and his daughter ran on stage. I just jumped up to record it to have this memory, and I had no idea that one of the Grammy cameras cut to me, to add, because right when he's saying his speech, he said, and also thank you to our collaborators, which is I guess why they cut to that section, because that's where we were sitting. And I guess I just happened to be standing right, right there. And so about 2 days after, I received that clip because it was posted, the next day on the Grammy YouTube channel, and then 2 days after that, it was posted on the Grammy Instagram channel, and that was just a huge. I mean, I can't even explain how I felt in that moment. Of all the thousands of people that the Grammy TV could have picked up, I can't believe
Yeah.
that they picked me
Love
up.
it. I love it. So, basically, what you're telling me is that somebody like yourself who's limited connections there, and your chances of meeting anybody really top would be very remote, right? Not much chance of doing that.
Yeah, I would say if you like, so this was my first year. So I think the connections for like the after party is where most of like the celebrity networking happens.
Hmm.
I didn't have connections for top level after parties to go to.
Hmm.
At the Grammy Awards, I think you would have to be nominated to even sit anywhere remotely close to a celebrity. So I think the ground floor is like celebrities, um, and then nominated artists only. And if you're
Okay.
not part of that, then you're on the second or third level. So you could
Okay.
see them, but even from the third level, I couldn't see them. Maybe from the second level, you could.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I could see them, but I wouldn't be able to make out who's who from that
Right.
distance.
But
But
like on the red carpet, can you get near people at that point?
oh, so if you're not nominated, you don't walk the red carpet.
But you are you? But the people standing on the side, the audience, they're walking past people.
Right? Yes.
So how do those people get there?
Actually, I think it could be just general public, but I actually don't know. I didn't see the red carpet of them walking in because we had to go through our entrance. So there was a separate entrance that we had to go
Oh,
through.
okay.
So right, I did see the red carpet set up before I walked to my entrance,
Right.
but nothing was happening on the red carpet when I passed it to go into our like the general Grammy entrance.
Yeah. So it was like your first year then. I mean, and now
Right.
next time you'll be more experienced, and maybe you can figure out how to do some of this stuff. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And I've made so many more contacts and phone numbers and I'm part of different WhatsApp groups now of Grammy nominated and Grammy winning children's artists. So now I have the in, you know. And even though this was Muzi's second Grammy nomination, his first one I believe was during COVID, and they had moved the Grammys to Las Vegas for
Wow.
that 1 year. So even though this
Wow.
was his second, everything in LA was totally new to him as well.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Very interesting. So let me give a little break here and give a little plug to the club. But I want to get into when we come back from this break is talking about, because you have some interesting ideas about music, and because we're a club that's dedicated to disability, so it's a tool for many reasons, but one of them it can be to promote the cause. So let's get into that in a minute. So again, my name is Ken Masson. I am the co-president of the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy. We are around the world. We've been around for 5 years. We've got a number of things that we're working on. Music is just one of them that Chad's really bringing into us at this point. And we've got a lot of concepts about music, and we'll talk about a few of them in a minute. But we've been doing inclusive education. That's one of our big things around the world, making sure that every child gets an opportunity to learn without limitations. And in addition, now we're starting up a health segment, which we're working on educating people and doctors and individuals on the different aspects going on with health regarding disabilities. We've got other things going on, such as polio, and there's a ton of stuff that we're doing at this point. And if you want to be a part of us, if I hit the right button here, Chad, I'll give the people our. Yeah, awesome. You did it. All right. So that is our email address. So anybody who is interested in being a part of what we're doing, we welcome you, and you can write to us, and we'll get in touch with you and see how we can bring you into the whole cause. So I love the story. I love hearing this kind of stuff. I mean, the Grammys it's a real world to all the people involved in the Grammys, but for the rest of us, it's not. It's a different world, a much different world, and different. All these people living in a different environment. That and to be a part of that Grammy night, which is, I don't know how long Grammy's been going on, but it's a long time. So for you to get a little bit of experience there, a little bit of adventure going on there, and seeing all that kind of a world is really cool. It really, really is cool. And so, let's talk a little bit about music, because I know you brought in a concept which I think is really great, about the fact that we can use music as a tool to help promote the cause of human rights for people with disabilities. What is your thoughts on that?
I as a hip hop artist, I would say that I've seen hip hop used in many, many ways to promote human rights. When I was growing up, we had a lot of socially conscious hip hop artists like KRS-One and Public Enemy that made songs that really caused social change. And that's why I started Hip Hop Saves Lives, because in the early 2000s, I felt like hip hop had taken a turn. It was much more commercial, and the social change aspect was kind of taken out of the mainstream. So I've always used and looked at hip hop as a way to educate the masses and inspire people and uplift people and show what talents and abilities a group, a specific demographic might have that is not, typically looked at on a regular basis. So the song I did in Sierra Leone with the two guys with polio, that was really asking their community to look at our abilities and not our disabilities. And that's why that song was so important to me. For me, as with my left leg, I always played sports, but there was always a certain limitation to it. So, that was actually the third time that I worked with persons with disabilities. I had worked with them in Liberia with deaf children and a young lady in Cuba who was blind. And this third time, they say the 3 times is the charm. or the third time is the charm. It just clicked with me that this was a new road that I wanted to fully pursue, working with persons with disabilities who were musicians, and to write and celebrate and bring attention to the biggest accomplishments and biggest events for persons with disabilities around the world. Um, so that's, we there was someone in our Rotary group that had posted in the main chat about the Australian Open. My first focus was the Paralympics, which starts at the beginning of March. But I saw the Australian Open, and tennis is my favorite sport. As much as I love American football, I'm a huge tennis fan, and I had been waiting for the Australian Open to start back so I could watch the tennis. And when I saw that post in our chat, the Australian Open had added blind tennis, and I Googled it, and I found out the Australian Open had been a pioneer and with inclusion with persons with disabilities. They were the first to add wheelchair tennis, I think, in 2002. And then the French Open and US Open and Wimbledon came afterwards. And now the Australian Open added blind tennis. With it being my favorite sport, I was just super excited that they had, added blind tennis. And I said, okay, this is, this happened for a reason. So this, was our first song. Celebrating blind tennis. And then you told me that about Natalia, who was a blind tennis player that was in our group. And I was like, the synergy just couldn't have been better. So she went out there with her mom, and me and her became really good WhatsApp homies. And she shared so much. I'm still working on the music video because she was posting video from the Australian Open. So I wanted video from the Australian Open of blind tennis players in the music video. So then I was like, okay, I have to wait till it's over and then talk to Natalia. And so we're working together on that. And then, of course, Ramped, you had reached out to Ramped, which is a recording. I actually don't remember what that acronym stands for, but it's for persons with disabilities in music. And they have a connection to the Grammys. So I did apply to be a member of Ramped. And I wanted to, as a person with disability, to be at the Grammys and kind of see what the Grammys kind of was there any inclusion, and to be honest, I'm not really sure I feel the Grammys are doing enough. That was my takeaway from that, and I'm really thankful that Ramped created that organization, and obviously it's very needed. So I look forward to becoming a member with that organization, seeing what more of that we can do through that organization to get the Grammys to bring more attention to musicians with disabilities.
Super. And so, and I appreciate the work you put into it. It's a ton of work to produce a song. It's a ton of work, and it caught a work on your part, and then you pulled a lot of people together to do it, and you did it. And we can post that somewhere, that song, so people can see it. Maybe I'll give a link to this when we post it on YouTube. So, but you have plans to do more. You're going to you want to do something for the Paralympics at this point, right?
Yes. So we actually just finished recording a song called "Out the Box." Which is the second song that we're doing. And I'm working with just two artists on this song that are, one is Lindsay, who sang on the Australian Open song. So I figured with the experience of the Australian Open song, if I pick like one or two artists to collaborate with on each song, I can get things done a little faster and then give people more opportunity to shine. So that song is kind of just about, as persons with disabilities, we have to think outside the box to get things done, so that's what that song is about. And also kind of celebrating that, that I made it to the Grammys and what was my experience at the Grammys. So we just finished that song. That's going to be mixed and mastered starting tomorrow. And now we're working on the Paralympic song, which I think, again, I'll include because that's such a big event that only happens once every every 2 years. So with that song, I think I'll work with more artists because I know more artists will be excited to work on the Paralympic song.
Very
Um,
cool.
Fingers crossed, I
Yeah,
can figure out the finances to get out to the Paralympics and do some
yeah,
promotion because I would
yeah,
really like to go. The experience in Paris was so much fun.
yeah.
The winter obviously is smaller because you can't really do wheelchairs on on you know on ice. So there's a lot less sports for the Winter Paralympics. But I just wanna go out there and experience that and really promote the music and our Rotary Club.
I'm willing to bet there's somebody doing wheelchairs on ice. And if there isn't, they're going to do it from here on.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm willing to
Yeah.
bet. I'm willing to bet because people with wheelchairs and different disabilities, there's
Hmm.
no limit to what they can do.
Right.
I mean, look at Natalia. People say, she plays blind tennis. How can a blind person play tennis? Well,
Right.
it's very doable. It's very
Hmm.
doable. But you had this other idea, which I think is really cool, and
Hmm.
that is to do a talent show
Yes.
of
Yes.
people with disabilities, musicians with disabilities around the
Hmm.
world. We can do
Around the
that.
world.
We can do it.
Right.
Tell us about your idea on that.
Yes. Well, I think at some point in our life, I think most people have seen like America's Got Talent or what was the original talent show? Um,
Yeah,
American Idol.
yeah, there you go.
Right. And they have Britain's Got Talent, a talent, Australia's Got Talent. I mean, these talent shows are all over the world and they're hugely successful and major record deals are coming out of these things. And I just thought like we need like our own for persons with disabilities. Sure, you've
Hmm.
seen persons with disabilities be included in some of these, but
Hmm.
I feel like uh, because of certain areas in the world have stigmas on persons with disabilities. In the United States or Europe, Australia, Canada, we might feel more included. But in Latin America or the Middle East or Africa or Southeast Asia, it's not that type of the openness. And there's a lot of stigmas. I know in Africa from traveling many countries in Africa that you're seen as cursed by your ancestors or cursed by God. And so for me, I feel like creating this opportunity for them to sing or play an instrument or rap or do poetry or can bring attention to them where their family sees them in a different light, And
Hmm.
so this is why I wanted to create like this global talent show online um, that anyone can join in and see, record the whole show. If you can't make it live, you can watch the recorded performance. But it's also for to build community because, like I said, in certain regions of the world, these stigmas exist, and for these people to get a friend from Ireland or get a friend from wherever, different countries where there is more hope for persons with disabilities, that type of community is very important. And the gentleman that you asked me to reach out to include him on the blind tennis song, I always forget his name, but I because he has an artist name, um, Art Advocacy, I think is his name. The guy from our Rotary
I'm not
group.
sure.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I know that he is an albino, um, and he reached out to me, and he said,
Mish.
"Mitch, yes." So after him working on, yeah, and he was very responsive, and I thank you for mentioning him. I developed a really good friendship with him, and he wrote a verse for the blind tennis song, and then he asked about two other songs that we could write as a group, and one of them was for World Albino Day. So this is a
Mhm.
disability that doesn't come to my mind when I think of persons with disabilities, but I know it's a really big thing in certain regions of the world. And he was saying there's a lot of issues in Tanzania, parts of Tanzania, where the stigma of albino is just really horrible. So I think in April, he said, I think it's in April, we're doing a song, for World Albino Day, and just having
Yay.
this community. He's really excited. I hear from him at
Yeah.
least twice a week now, and so yeah, that's really important.
So and we're going to grow this group. I mean, you've got, I don't know, 15 members in it right now, but I mean, there's so many that can be involved in it. We're now finding that there are different organizations around the world, of course, that are dedicated to musicians with disabilities in various forms. And I think we're going to work on a process of bringing those all together, hopefully. So we can be the center, the one that brings them all together. And we're going to do that. It's going to take some time, but we're going to do it. So, I mean, musicians out there at this point listening say, how can I be a part of this thing? I really want to get involved in it. I really want to work with Chad. And again, let me just bring this up. This is our Rotary Gmail that people can write to. And it's they can say that they'd like to be a part of musicians with disabilities, and we'll put you in touch with Chad, because Mr. Chad now is our chairperson for musicians with disabilities. So we'll get you in touch with him, and he can talk with you and kind of work this whole concept out. So let's kind of finish up here with one more question I have for you, and that's let's talk about your plans for the next year or so. What's on your agenda for the next year, in addition to Paralympics and all that?
Right. So after that, so we have to submit to the Grammys by the end of August. So with our music club, our Rotary music group, we want to record as much music as possible so we can release an album, submit it to the Grammys. We'll figure out what category. I mean, there's a lot of different categories that it could fall under, but we definitely want to submit to the Grammys for this album. As you asked about the online music competition and kind of showcase for persons with disabilities, we want to do at least 2 a year with that. And honestly, I was talking to some people, and like, music is such a streamed thing now that I was talking to some of the artists that on the first song, and they were like, selling the music could be a bit of like too much of a hustle, because people are so used to like, oh, I just go on YouTube, I listen to what I want, I pay for Spotify, I listen to what I want. So I'm actually, because I'm a huge sports person, and I had thought about this idea actually when I submitted the first song to the Grammys, because the song was called Ability with the guys from Sierra Leone. But I wanted to create a sports apparel line dedicated to persons with disabilities. So I'm working on that now. It's called Team Ability, because it's about highlighting your abilities. And if we could fundraise that way, everybody on the planet has to buy clothes. So because of streaming, selling music is not that big of a thing anymore. So we want to focus on raising funds through the clothing line, which can help provide funds for artists to go to the studio, and even pay them for their participation on the songs. And we also want to donate to our Rotary Club, and a second donation stream we want to go to para athletes, because if you're part of the Olympics, you're endorsed, but being part of the Paralympics, you're training on your own. There's not a lot of money, there's not a lot of support. So Team Ability is also wanting to highlight certain countries that really struggle with finances for athletes to train. And we want to look at helping them promote not promote, but helping them train and attend the Paralympics. So fingers crossed when we have the Paralympics in Los Angeles in 2028. You know, our Rotary Club, hopefully we sponsored 3 or 4, you know, Paralympic athletes from different parts of the world, and we're helping them with their plane tickets and accommodations and just helping para athletes attend the biggest sports event on the planet.
That's cool. That's a great idea. I really love it. I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Chad. It's been a pleasure. This conversation has been nothing but a pleasure. And we need to come back with you when we get some more updates on some of the things that we're doing, particularly the talent show and stuff like that. And we can come back and promote it a little bit. And maybe we can get you to come back and we can bring a musician with us next time. And maybe they can do a little performance when they're with it, while they're here with us. So, okay, sir, very much a pleasure. And
thank you, Ken.
Wish you a good day.
You too.
Take care. Take care.
Bye-bye.